Hola chicos. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit further about when we use the subjunctive in adverbial clauses. This is the topic that really confuses people much more so than the previous topics with the subordinate clauses of adverbial clauses with subjunctive. Here, we are going to use the subjunctive or the indicative or potentially the infinitive depending on the context of our situation. Now, our situation is not as clear cut here with these prepositions because, or these conjunctions, because we could potentially use the indicative with it or the subjunctive with it. We have to know the context of each of our situations. So whenever we are, whenever we have these words, there's a lot more thought that has to go into it because we really have to think about whether something has happened or it hasn't happened yet, or potentially it happens regularly. So these words, just like the escapa words, they're really important to know. A pesar de que, aunque, cuando, these are really useful words for all sorts of reasons. In particular with this grammar topic, it's important to know what the vocab of the words is. So know what all these words mean is going to make things a lot easier for you to understand the context of each of your situations when you're reading or writing. But also, if you just know, know what the meaning of, aunque, if you know what that word means, it'll help you understand whether you would use the subjunctive or the indicative after it a lot better than if you're just kind of guessing. So obviously. So let's actually start with aunque. I'm going to show you an example. Here we've got aunque mejore. So right here, this is mejore. This is from mejorar, AR verb. This is the subjunctive of the verb mejorar, the present tense subjunctive. So even if security improves, in this context, because they're saying even if it improves, it's telling us it hasn't happened yet, right? Aunque mejore la seguridad, even if it improves. It hasn't improved yet. So that's why we use the subjunctive here. And actually, if you look at the definition, aunque means although, or it means even if. The reason it's got both those definitions is because it's even if kind of implies something that hasn't happened yet. That's how this word aunque would be translated if it is in the subjunctive. So aunque, then we've got mejore, subjunctive. That means this word now, aunque, is going to be translated as even if, because you can see how even if would imply an action that hasn't happened yet. However, although, that implies something that has happened. So whenever you see aunque with a subjunctive conjugation, that would translate most likely as even if. If you say aunque with an indicative conjugation, it's probably going to translate as although. So let's finish the sentence here. Aunque mejore la seguridad, siempre tendrán miedo de viajar en avión. So even if security improves, they'll always be afraid to travel by plane. So again, the reason why we use a subjunctive wasn't because of anything other than the fact that this security hasn't improved yet. This still has not happened. That's why it is subjunctive. Now, aunque lends itself well to be with, to be paired with a verb in the indicative. So, aunque mejore works here, but I can also say, aunque mejora la seguridad. If I change that, I can say, aunque mejora la seguridad. It might make me change a little bit of the main clause here, but even if I use mejore, it's even if, but if I change it to aunque mejora, this now means like even though or although security is improving, aunque mejora la seguridad. Just by changing this letter actually from E to A, I change this from even if security improves to, even though security is improving. So actually, I think in this case, it's still okay to say what we have here. Let's see. So even though security is improving, I would probably say, they still are afraid to fly by or travel by plane. They still are afraid of doing that. Probably makes a little bit more sense with the grammar, but yeah. So mejore or mejora could follow this. It just depends on what you actually intend to say or what the author intends to convey. It just, that one letter changes the sentence, the meaning of a sentence. Because, you know, mejore, it hasn't happened yet. Mejora, it is happening. It has happened. But anyways, all these words right here, cuando, después de que, en cuanto, some of these are synonyms, you know, tan pronto como, en cuanto, they both mean the same thing, but they're both used very often, so it's important to know both of them. And they know you could use that as, you know, with the indicative or with the subjunctive. A lot of time when it is something that has happened already, that also means that it'll probably be in the preterite. It can be in other tenses too. It can be the present. It can be the imperfect, but oftentimes it'll be in the preterite. You know, if I, you know, I did my homework as soon as, you know, I could say whatever. You know, I did my homework as soon as class ended. You know, in that case, I would use the indicative after it because class ended. I'm going to use the subjunctive, or I'm sorry, I'm going to use the indicative with it because it did happen already. Now, if I'm telling you, I'm going to finish my homework as soon as, you know, as soon as the game ends. Has the game ended in that case? No. Then we'd use the subjunctive in there. You know, en cuanto el partido termine. I would use the subjunctive in that conjugation. So this is a little bit trickier. You have to really give it some thought about whether or not it has happened or it has not happened yet, and then you use the subjunctive. So for right now, make sure you know these vocab words that are on the screen, know what they mean, and you know, try to understand how that, what is going to be, you know, what is going to be implied, whether it happened or not, is not going to be as obvious with these sentences. We need more. So our main clause is more important now than it was in our escapa words. Our escapa words implied an action that hasn't happened yet. But when I use the word like cuando, when I use the word when, I need more than that. I can't tell you, has it happened or not? Whatever follows cuando, I need more context. So that's when that main clause is going to be really important. Also, speaking of main clause, now really, this is, you know, these two examples right here, these are examples of, you know, using subjunctive and adverbial clauses, but actually our subordinate clause is the start. Our subordinate clause is the beginning of it. You can flip-flop these a bit. It actually starts with our conjunction, kind of, you know, this is like an introductory clause, is our, this is what we normally consider our main clause, is the part that comes at the end. Normally our main clause is the beginning, it's our trigger, but in this case, it's actually, we have to use the main clause is the second part of this. Just, again, you can flip-flop it. I could say, siempre tendrán miedo de viajar en avión, aunque mejore la seguridad. That's probably our standard way of doing that, but you could flip-flop these too. You could put your subordinate clause in the beginning of your sentence, you know, start off with your conjunction word, and then the same thing in that third example, cuando hablen con la prensa, van a exigir la libertad para los prisioneros. You could flip that and put just the van a exigir la libertad part in the beginning, and then cuando hablen con la prensa. They're going to demand freedom for the prisoners when they speak with the press. And again, you can see in that example, they haven't spoken with the press yet. That's why it's hablen. You know, if they had spoken with them, you know, then everything changes. You may have said they demanded freedom for the prisoners when they spoke with the press. So after, in that case, after cuando, hablaron would be your conjugation. It'd be the preterite indicative because it happened. So cuando itself, all alone, doesn't tell us whether you use the subjunctive or the indicative. We need to know the context, and really it's right here. They are going to demand. You can see it's got the van a. A lot of times that's kind of a key word, using that or the future conjugation, tendrán, that's a future tense. Oftentimes the ir a construction can also be a giveaway that you should, it's something that hasn't happened yet because they are going to do this, meaning probably hasn't happened. Okay, this is where I'll leave it for today. Bueno, buena suerte.